creating our safe space within ourselves, not looking for it outside of ourselves, but creating that within, because then that's where everything can come from there. If we don't feel safe yet, we don't know how to create that, then we're still in survival mode. And that's not going to help us grow. There is no growth in overwhelm. There's only growth that can come from stress or I want to say stress and rest. So this idea that we want to experience some stretching, but in a way that we can stay safe enough. So we've got to start with the safety before we can even then stretch that window in which we feel safe.
Okay, so first you work on the safety. So then once a person has a felt sense of safety, so then what's the next step?
The next step is going to be working with the anxiety that can come up as we create safety. May seem counterintuitive, but as we create safety, then our body is like, oh, you're ready for me to show you all of these things that I've been holding for you. And we see the grief, we see the fear, we see these things, we feel these things. And so it's now being able to support our body to be with those emotions and move through them so that we don't get drowned and overwhelmed by them again. And we just pack them until later. And so the support, feeling that support. So in week 2 of the 21-day journey, that's what we do in week 2. How can I support my body so that I can physically feel like I can hold more? I can hold more stress.
Hello, I'm Robin Jeep with Enliven Foods. This is the Enliven Foods podcast where I find amazing innovators, brilliant innovators, and bring them on to ask some questions for you all, and for myself too, of course. So this is Aimie Apigian. She's a medical doctor, and she's double board certified in, I've got to get my notes here, in Preventive and Addiction Medicine. And she also has a Master's of Science in Biochemistry and Public Health. So she has that background, but she's gone into something that's bounced off some of this. And that's very helpful. Having your medical degree is very helpful as well, because you're dealing with biology, the biology of trauma. And Aimie, it's very, very exciting time for Aimie. She's just launched her book, The Biology of Trauma. And so she's doing lots of interviews and podcasts. And this is I haven't read the book yet. I'm still waiting for my copy, but from what I know of Dr. Aimie and from what I've read, the book is phenomenal, and you all this is a must read. So I was telling Dr. Aimie that a lot of the people that I address on this podcast are whole food plant-based eaters, and the interview for Optimize magazine in Canada. And they're not as familiar with a lot of these things that are coming out that I've been introducing to them. And one of the things that a lot of people go on a whole food plant-based diet and their guts are in such bad shape, they have a really hard time doing it. I've counseled a lot of these people. They'll say, well, I try to eat this. I'm trying to eat all these salads. I'm trying to eat all of that. And as if you all have watched any of my podcasts, you know that some people, they can't do that yet. Their guts are so impaired that they have to start here to get here. You just can't jump into that. It can actually make things worse. And so what Dr. Aimie addresses is something really deep, because the gut issues are not just gut issues. They have so much to do with all the traumas that we're exposed to. And when I say traumas, I'm including even chemical traumas, being exposed to pollutants, horrible food, that's not even food, and then the stress of this modern culture and the lacking of being in nature and not getting sunshine. These are all traumas to our body, not to mention that the things we consider trauma, like childhood trauma and all of that, which plenty of us have that as well. And there's just a lot of trauma in our world because people are not connecting in a nurturing way anymore. So I've got an expert on this who has had her own experiences. She came to this because she was dealing with her own issues. and I'm going to let her I'm going to let her speak now. So one of the things, so your background's in preventative medicine. And so how does addressing stored trauma, that's what we're going to be talking about, impact physical health conditions like chronic inflammation, autoimmune issues, and gut health?
You know, many people are looking at those health issues and they're not connecting the dots because these are things that the body has stored for decades. And we're not often then even thinking of the emotions or what was the trigger. But I will tell you, Robin, that every person that I've spoken with those kinds of health issues, I look back to see, when did it start? When did you notice that something just started to be off? And there's always something that was happening in their life at that time that had them feeling insecure, that had them feeling scared, and often at a level of, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea how this is going to work out. I don't know if I'm going to be okay. And whether that was a divorce, a car accident, that's actually what I start my book with. I start my book with a patient, Elena, and her story. She got diagnosed with autoimmunity 1 year after a car accident. She's in her late 40s. Well, it's not that the car accident was a huge major trauma, but it tipped the edge. It was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Things had been building underneath the surface. She was a single mom. She was already having some issues with the therapist. She was running the therapy group, and there were therapists who were burning out. And so she's worried about keeping up with work and being responsible for helping them avoid their burnout. And so there was already so much on her plate. And then she gets into this car accident. And now she's also dealing with the pain and the recovery, and it slows her down. And this is what then put her into this state, which ended up triggering the autoimmune diagnosis. But without knowing that, right? Like, she's just thinking, oh, this is one more thing. Everything is going wrong. Life is just horrible right now and is working against me, and my body is betraying me, not realizing that this has been years in the making. And as we uncovered it, actually, Robin, she had been born premature, never even thinking that that would have been a trauma to her body at that time, because she's thinking, no, that was a life-saving measure. My life was saved as a result of that.
Yep.
And we downplay so much of what we've been through as a result. And so it's no wonder that our bodies have been doing the best that they can for a really long time. But there's two reasons why we cross a line, and it's no longer just stress for us. It's trauma. And these are the conditions that come with chronic trauma. And they are too much too fast and too little for too long. And by the time that someone has the development of one of these physical health issues that you mentioned, it's a combination of both. They have now been living with fear and survival for so long. It's just been too little for too long.
That's it. I mean, when you tell that story, mine happened 6 weeks after my accident, but I've thought back on mine when I was in the hospital in Los Angeles. I was there for almost 3 weeks. I had no family. I had nobody there. I didn't have use of my legs, and I was a very type A, active, independent person. And here I am on my back in a hospital that's scary, very scary, with no advocate, just me. And I remember never being able to relax because I had to always make sure, what are they trying to give me? What are you doing to me? You know, all of this, because and then I get out of the hospital, and 6 weeks later, you know, everything started, the food sensitivities and the autoimmune type stuff. It all started just and went on and went on. And that's what I'm seeing, is that, you know, isn't this it, that our nervous systems are so amped up, and then it causes our immune system to be, you know, surveilling everything. Everything's just so amped up. And so what you've come up with is a whole program. I mean, it has to be the whole education part of it, but you figured out a way to help people quiet their nervous systems and then subsequently their immune systems. Is that correct?
Yes. And, you know, there's been a big misunderstanding for people on what stress does to us and what trauma does to us. This was something that I didn't know. I even went through all of medical school not being taught this. And it wasn't until my body finally said, no more, we can't do this anymore, that I had to learn about these two different survival states. We can be in a survival state when we're in stress, and we can be in a survival state when we are in a trauma response. And this idea that if there is autoimmunity, that is a reflection of a biology of trauma, not a biology of stress.
Mhm.
Our body has crossed the line. Same thing with chronic pain, same thing with weight issues, same thing with digestive issues that won't resolve, skin issues, because our nervous system is stuck in this survival mode. And if it's stuck, that is not stress. That is actually now a biology of trauma.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, okay, so trauma is basically overwhelm. It's when your body, it's more than you can handle.
Right.
Stress is where it's uncomfortable and you're trying to deal with it, and then maybe it kind of gets better or goes away for a while, whatever you're dealing with, but it's not overwhelming. Is that correct?
Exactly. I talk about stress in the sense of it's like a sprint. And there are times when we want to sprint. We need to sprint. It's good for us to sprint. Stress can grow us. But then there comes this moment where it's just been too much. And maybe it doesn't matter how fast we run, how hard we run, how long we run. It's never enough. And then that's when our body says, well, then if it's not enough, I shouldn't keep trying. And it's better for me to just give in, give up. Why waste my energy if it can't make a difference?
Well, that makes so much sense. So if you've got a
Right.
person that's in like a, let's say, a semi-abusive relationship, it's not, terribly abusive, but maybe a woman, her husband just kind of says snide remarks and doesn't communicate with her that much. So that's a stressful relationship. But if it goes on and on and on and on and doesn't get any better, does that become the overwhelm and trauma? Can that?
Exactly. So that's why I come back to these two reasons why we crossed that line. Is it too much too fast? And if it's a car accident, if it's a natural disaster, those are situations where it just happened too fast. I didn't have time to think. I didn't have time to figure out what was the best thing to do. So I just froze. But then there's this other category, Robin.
Yes.
Too little for too long. And that's really what chronic stress is. Our bodies actually can't stay in chronic stress. It's either stress or trauma.
Yep. Okay.
And so chronic stress is actually a crossing of a line into overwhelm because it's just been too little of support, too little of rest and recovery, too little of touch, too little love, too little of whatever it is. And it's just been too long. And our body can't sustain a stress response. A stress response is a sprint. It's fast, it's short, this is high energy. Our body can't sustain that high energy. And so it goes into this other state that's more of a low energy state. And when we feel that low energy, we may start to think, oh, I'm getting depressed. Maybe I should go on an SSRI. Oh, I'm feeling exhausted. Maybe I should take another mitochondria supplement.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Like these are the places where our
Right.
mind goes when I'm feeling depressed or low energy, not realizing, no, my whole body has now shifted into a completely different state. It's like going from, here's this analogy. The stress is like the fifth gear, sixth gear in your car. It is your foot on that accelerator. It is high energy. And all of a sudden, I call it in my book, hitting the wall, hitting the wall. Hitting the wall, meaning you realize that you can't overcome. You don't have enough. You don't have enough energy. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough support. You're not enough. Whatever the reason, you've just hit a wall. And in that moment, our car shifts from that high gear to low gear, first gear, emergency brake. And it can feel that sudden. In fact, this is often what people will experience in that moment. They feel a shock, and the shock stuns them. and stops them. I can't believe this is happening. Maybe you remember a moment like that, Robin, where even with our health issues, we can have that shock of, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe I now have this new issue. I can't believe that I have all of these issues and I go in and my labs are normal and my doctor is saying that there's nothing wrong with me. I can't believe this is happening. And it puts us often into this internal paralysis. And that's trauma. That is no longer a stress response.
There was something where I read the hitting the wall. I'm trying to find it here. There are two things that happen. There's first you hit the wall, and then, I mean, that's when you become deflated. It's like if you're held hostage, you're kidnapped and you're held hostage, and you've tried every way to get out. You know, you're trying to get out. You're going through all those different stages you talk about, and then
Right.
you finally hit the stage. You can't get out.
Right.
I can't get out of here. I'm stuck.
Right.
And then you just curl up in a ball.
Exactly. And that's when you know that your body's gone to this trauma response, when whether you actually do or not, you feel like you do want to curl up into a ball, pull the covers over your head and just make it go away. So in my book, then in chapter 6, I talk about the survival mechanisms that kick in that moment, Robin. And one of those survival mechanisms is dissociation. Dissociation, because I am so uncomfortable in my reality right now. I hate my reality and the fact that I can't change it, that I just want to disconnect from it. I want to dissociate from it. And then we find ourselves avoiding our reality in many ways. Some of us do go to bed and pull the covers over our head. Some of us lose ourselves in emotional eating and eating when we're not even actually hungry. Some of us dive into movies and just Netflix. Some do the social media scrolling. It's everything but feel our feelings because it feels so awful.
Or workaholics. I've seen it a lot with people just throwing themselves into their work, so they never have a second to even process anything.
Exactly. And you see the same thing with people who go to the gym.
I bet you used to do that.
I did. Oh, I totally did that. That's how I know about all this stuff. I've done it.
Well, I was talking to a friend of mine. I think that one of the reasons I've survived, and I have a friend that's also, I'm a twin and she's a twin. We both have lost our twin brothers.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, it was very sad. My brother was murdered and hers died of AIDS. And we were talking about how we're fighters. We were friends as little children, and we were very tomboys and just very independent. She once took a water moccasin in the creek. She was maybe 9, maybe she was 11 years old, and she took a rock and just squatted down over it and just crushed its head. And I mean, I remember being really impressed by that as a child. But we were talking about how since we're fighters, we never curled up in the bed. We continue, and I think this is my survival. This is why I've survived, is because I never gave up. I never, even though I didn't have money, I couldn't work anymore. I was, just poor. I always would manage to scrounge up the money from my Social Security to try this doctor or try this or try this. I never gave up. I always found a workaround. And so there must be these different types of people that deal, and I bet you're that way too. You'll find the workaround. Well, that's what you've done. I mean, that's what this is all about.
Yeah. So then we look at, again, now we're getting stuck in the loop because we will feel these times where we're like fighting and we're like, but how is that the giving in and the giving up that you're talking about with the trauma response? Our body gets into this loop and it remains in the loop until it has its complete reset to safety. And so it's in this loop, and the loop goes between stress, or that high energy when you and I are online and searching and figuring out, how do I make this work? And then we will have times where we just lay there. The brain fog, the heaviness, the hopelessness. And we can't find the strength to do that. And usually, oftentimes, every day we're looping between these two states. Sometimes in the day, we're in that stress. Sometimes in the day, we're in the, oh, I give up. Can't do this. And that's what is impacting our biology. We call this the pattern of dysregulation. I cover that in chapter 9, dysregulation, and this idea that our nervous system is always in a state of survival, either amped up with stress or heavy with the trauma state. But because of that, Robin, we're able to see that our responses are never what would be appropriate. And our responses are, sometimes we overreact to small things.
Oh, yes.
Others, we underreact to important things.
Yep.
And this is the pattern of dysregulation that then will always drive dis-ease.
So let's talk about how this process, this dysregulation process, how it causes, how it compromises your immune system, how then you start to get all these, you can get all these infections and stuff because your immune system's not working properly. And then you end up sick with all of these things. So we talk about some of that, please. That would be.
Yes. So the idea is that we have an acute response, acute trauma response. And this is where, even just yesterday, I was talking with a father and his son had witnessed a shooting. And he saw the shock on his son's face. This is an acute trauma response. How then does that become chronic? That becomes chronic because his son is one of these that's just channeling that into exercise. He's now riding 50 miles on his bike. He's now in the gym for many hours of the day. Doesn't want to talk about it. This is his way of avoiding it. But when we avoid it in the immediate moment, it becomes chronic. And so then that's when we're seeing the impact on our immune system, on our digestive system, on our cardiovascular system, on our endocrine system. I mean, it's everywhere because it's our state. And so when we look at what does it do to our immune system, one of the important aspects to understand about the trauma response, the trauma state, is that it removes the brake that would normally be on our immune system. So our immune system is designed to respond when it's supposed to and not respond when it's not supposed to. But if we remove the brake, now it's responding to everything. And this is where we see often mast cells. Mast cells are very common in immune imbalance. Mast cells are the cells in our immune system that are the surveillance system. They gather all this information. They're often the first line, the front people on the surveillance system. And so they're seeing things and they're reacting when they don't need to be reacting, but they see danger everywhere. The immune cells in our brain are called microglia. It's the same thing. They're now reacting and unleashing cytokines and inflammation and causing the brain fog that we can experience. Why? Because they see danger everywhere, even when there's not.
Headaches too, because that's what I get. I don't get the brain fog so much. I get the headaches. I have MCAS.
Yeah.
So I developed MCAS. And so I know, yes.
And then we look at autoimmunity, because that's what autoimmunity is as well. Autoimmunity is this idea that there should be a brake, but the brake is not working.
Is MCAS is that an autoimmune disease itself?
You know, it's not usually an autoimmune disease itself, but it's where the mast cells have been primed, just like our microglia in our brain can be primed so that their stress threshold is lower. So oftentimes a normal mast cell would say, all right, I need to see this amount of danger before I'm going to send off the signals of danger, danger, danger. But when we are in this state, it's sensory signal says, I only need this much of a cue of danger, and then I'm going to start sending off signals. And so that's why we can eat and we send off signals. Our mast cells are like, danger, we ate food. And I'm like, why was that dangerous? And our mast cells are like, because everything is dangerous right now. Like, oh. So again, the challenge is that when we have these physical health issues, we can tend to want to focus on the physical health issue rather than see that it will need that support. And as like you've learned, it also needs the nervous system regulation.
Absolutely.
It also needs the nervous system healing. Otherwise, our mast cells will always stay primed and ready to send the alert of danger to everything and anything. So it's both. A person can't just do the nervous system healing without supporting the mast cells. And they can't just do the mast cell work without supporting the nervous system, because they're feeding off of each other. So it's going to take both, as has been your experience, I believe.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's still taking both. So yeah, that's what's the beauty of you having the medical degree, and now you've learned all this functional medicine and integrative medicine too, having that as well as the understanding of the trauma work that needs to be done. So you can integrate them both and work with a person on both. Well, do you work with people individually anymore, or how do you, I mean, I know you've got your programs, but if somebody wanted to work with you, or like, do you have health coaches that are under you, or what, how do you do this?
Absolutely. So what I'm finding is that so much of what trauma has done to us has made us isolate and feel different from other people.
Yes. Oh gosh.
And so part of what I need to help a person do is to come back into some form of connection, in some way be able to relate to other people again and see that, oh, I'm actually not different at all.
Right.
Actually, I'm just like everyone else. And I think that was your experience when you came through the 21-day journey, is actually, it doesn't replace the need to do your own work, right? Absolutely
Right.
no. You still have your own work and other people have their work, and we're not saving each other. We're not trying to fix each other. We are owning our own work. But when we come together and we say, we each are doing our own work and we're doing it together, there's something that changes, Robin. And it's this, I mean, I'm seeing faster results with a people, with a group that can go through something like the 21-day journey and be learning these somatic skills to shift their nervous system state in the moment, be able to learn how to find and create their inner safety in the moment, and be able to do it in a way that they can see that you're doing it as well, and you're doing it as well. And I can show up for you. Might be hard to show up for myself, but I know that there's a class. So I'm going to show up for the class, because it's easier to do that than if it were just me all on my own watching a video by Dr. Aimie on my computer. Not going to tend to do that as much. So I intentionally start people with this group experience, not because we're coming together to tell our stories. Absolutely not. You know that we don't tell our stories,
Right.
because that's not helpful. What we're doing is learning the nervous system regulation piece from the very beginning. And that's what really starts to shift people's biology.
So let's talk about, because the somatic exercises are so powerful, and most of these people, I mean, a lot of the people watching won't know, have no idea of what we're talking about. So can you explain about the somatic exercises and how, before you do, I want to say one thing that I think ties into this, and you just tell me. It seems that humans have become so cerebral at the expense of losing touch with their innate protective senses. I think that humans used to probably be more
In tune.
in tune. They're out in nature, and they're like animals. They could sense things and smell things and discern that there was something that was not good. And people no longer observe nature's natural patterns or rhythms. And for a long time, our modern society has not required knowledge of nature to survive. So we didn't need to. So we were out of touch, out of sync with nature and our own inner natures. Yet being attuned to this inner nature, which informs us about the world around us, is what gives us a sense of security. Do the somatic exercises help us reconnect to this primitive protective awareness we so desperately crave? Is that correct?
That's the way I see it, Robin. It's been my experience
it.
that when people can reconnect with themselves, that's the most important relationship for them to repair. And then from that friendship that they've made with their own body and that repair, then they can start to extend that to other people. They can start to have very different relationships with their spouse, their partner, their kids, their friends, their coworkers, whoever it is, because they've found a different way to connect and befriend their own body and themselves.
So let's get into some examples of a somatic exercise and how this helps you connect to your own body and your own sense of self-safety, your own sense of what you're sensing, because I think we're so shut down, we don't even know what we're sensing.
This is so true. And we have a term for that in medicine. It's called interoception. This ability to perceive my insides. Interoception. And the studies have been very clear, looking at a mother's interoception and her ability to know what her baby needs. If a mother does not have good interoception for herself, she is less able to develop that attunement and to intuitively know, what does my baby need right now? And so this is what we're talking about, right? It's the connection with ourselves that actually leads to a better connection with other people.
Yes. And it gives you wisdom.
Exactly.
You don't make all the mistakes.
Right.
And so you don't have the trauma from all the mistakes you make.
Exactly. This is it.
Sounds like, yeah. So let's talk about some examples of what this is like, what these somatic exercises are like, for people to understand that. We can even do one.
I know we could even do one. I'm curious, like, how would you describe the somatic exercises? I tend to struggle to be able to have words to describe like how simple these exercises are and yet how powerful they are. And yet I know that they were powerful for you.
Yes, they're very powerful. Well, the one that's just really simple is sitting in a chair, putting your feet on the floor, and here's how I think about it, and your back leaning against the back. That's all supportive. And I'm a Christian, and I became a very strong believer when I had that accident. So everything that I do is focused on God and God's protection and safety and all of that. And so I think of creation. So he created the ground, which holds the foundation of this house that I'm on. So I'm feeling the floor. It's supporting me, the ground that he created me to live on planet Earth. And so I'm now in touch with the ground that's supporting me. It's kind, it's supporting me. And then the back of the chair is supporting me. And so I feel very safe with that. And then I might do some simple breathing, no yoga breathing, just simple breathing, like 4 in and 6 out. And then if I'm really stressed, I might look around the room. And this reminds me of a dog. I might look around the room and I go, are there any threats in here? Is there a threat there? Is there a threat? Is there anything threatening under my desk? And I'll look around and no, there's nothing threatening. And already I feel the support of the ground. I feel the support of the back of the chair. There's, breathing in a way that's not a anxious breathing, calm breathing. And there's nothing threatening in the room. So, already just doing this, like I'm telling you about it, because doing these podcasts, I get nervous and I want to do it right, but already it brings down, it makes me calmer. Just doing that, we just did right there.
And that is so key, because it's often the intensity of whatever it is that we're feeling that makes it so hard, whether it's the intensity of the loneliness, the sadness, the fear, the anxiety. And so to be able to just feel calmer, I'm not going for 100% calm. I don't
Right.
need that. I just need some of the intensity taken off, because if I don't, then I know that I'm going to be seeking relief from that chocolate bar in my cupboard, or trying to go on a walk or a jog to forget about it, or
Right.
I'm going to find relief somewhere. And I'd rather be able to create that relief from a place of something that will be helpful to my body, something that will be healthy, not something that I'm going to regret that I did later on because it has other consequences.
Right. And it's so, one of the things that I want people to understand is it seems so simple, but it is very powerful. And because I really think that things that, I mean, it's that God has made us in such a way, and the things that work for us are simple. They're really not complex. And I know you still have a dog.
I do.
So I have two, and I watch them, and I
Yes.
see they, how they have a sense, they do have a sense of self. They can feel what's going on inside them, and they'll come up to you and want to be petted all of a sudden, because and I can tell that one is nervous. And so now, because I'm more in touch with myself, in the past I would have pushed them away or patted them for a second, but now I say, oh, you're nervous. I can see you're nervous. So then I'll stroke him and pet him until he calms down, maybe speak to him. And we don't do that. We just, like you said, go for a run or go eat something or go do something to push it down. It's not easy it's really not easy to connect with yourself and your feelings. I guess, like you said, it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of unresolved, unconnected feelings.
This is it, right? It's coming back to this idea of trauma disconnects us. And the healing journey is about repairing that connection so that we are now together with our body, with ourselves, with others, repairing the disconnection that has happened.
Because you won't heal without it.
You can't.
No, you can't.
We do not heal in separation, in isolation, in disconnection. That's not healing.
Well, I know that a lot of doctors and Gabor Mate, some of you all may know who he is. I mean, all of these people are, pretty blown away by what Dr. Aimie has done and has written, and not just written, she's been doing this. I did a group with her in 2021. So you've been doing this for a long time.
A long time.
You've seen a lot, and it's working, and it's blowing these health professionals' minds, because they're just seeing what you've put together. And I'm looking at, I look forward to having the book, but that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to kind of distill it down in this podcast to make it something that people can grasp. So the first thing you're going to do, because you can't really do the work like I had mentioned to Dr. Aimie earlier. She has another part called parts, where you're dealing with different parts of yourself. And some of these areas where there's a lot of emotional charge, I have a really hard time doing that. I don't want to do it. I resist it because I don't feel safe enough to do it. Now, I did feel with those two people that I worked with, I did feel safe enough with them. I trusted the lady. And so I felt, so anytime you can feel safe, I do go to the scriptures a lot to feel safe, all the promises and all this the interesting thing is the Bible is so much about how to be safe.
It's true.
It's what it's all about, is how to be safe and to protect yourself. It's amazing. That's what it's all about. And I mean, because God knew that that's an issue for human beings. I mean, for every living creature in the world the way it is now. So you come and you learn, first of all, how to feel safe. Is that correct? This
This is where it all starts. It all starts with actually finding, which usually means creating our safe space within ourselves, not looking for it outside of ourselves, but creating that within, because then that's where everything can come from there. If we don't feel safe yet, we don't know how to create that, then we're still in survival mode. And that's not going to help us grow. There is no growth in overwhelm. There's only growth that can come from stress or I want to say stress and rest. So this idea that we want to experience some stretching, but in a way that we can stay safe enough. So we've got to start with the safety before we can even then stretch that window in which we feel safe.
Okay, so first you work on the safety. So then once a person has a felt sense of safety, so then what's the next step?
The next step is going to be working with the anxiety that can come up as we create safety. May seem counterintuitive, but as we create safety, then our body is like, oh, you're ready for me to show you all of these things that I've been holding for you. And we see the grief, we see the fear, we see these things, we feel these things. And so it's now being able to support our body to be with those emotions and move through them so that we don't get drowned and overwhelmed by them again. And we just pack them until later. And so the support, feeling that support. So in week 2 of the 21-day journey, that's what we do in week 2. How can I support my body so that I can physically feel like I can hold more stress and not break, but bend.
So that's the next step. Is it just progressive after that? Or are there any other?
And then there's the capacity building. So yeah, then we want to be able to focus on, I don't want to stay small to stay safe. I don't want to stay small to stay safe. So what I want to do is I need to find my safety, and then from there, support myself in order to be able to stay in that safe place longer. And then I'm going to build my capacity and build my ability to show up and ride the waves of life, experience grief and not get overwhelmed by it. So the 3 phases of the healing journey starts with safety, then support, and then expansion. And this is where we can apply some of the cutting edge stuff, whether it's peptides on the functional medicine side, or some of the more cutting edge trauma therapies or personal development, because we have that flexibility now and we're building that capacity to be able to do so much more than we used to. But especially when we're first starting out, our body is so frequently leaving its safe place. How do we bring ourselves back? How do we keep ourselves in that? So that's where things have to start. It's not the time to even process our past and go into our childhood or our stories. That's not where we start. We start by learning the skills to shift our nervous system and find our inner safety.
Okay, so the support is any of the things like you were saying, peptides. Interesting. This doctor that I'm seeing, who's very good, he's a Russian doctor, and I did not want to do this. I've always had an aversion to it, and he kept saying, I think you should really try bioidentical hormones. I had a hysterectomy when I was 46, and I didn't want to do it. And he said, Robin, I think this could help you calm down the progesterone. And I just, and so I said, okay, well, I'll do a very low dose of it, very small dose. And because I know that I need something to calm my nervous system down. Yeah. And sure enough, I started doing it, the topical, and I started really sleeping well and much calmer, because he explained the GABA, how it causes you to produce more of the GABA. So I was willing to do that, and I did that. And then I also, one of the suggestions was, because I kept getting long COVID, I would get light cases of COVID. This has to do with the MCAS. I'd get a very light case of COVID, hardly even knew I had it, but then I'd get long COVID for months. And then he said, well, do a nicotine patch, a low dose nicotine patch. I did. Within 3 days, the long COVID was gone. And so all these things that I wouldn't have done on my own, he's recommending, recommended, and they're really helping.
This is it, right? Like they're really helping. Our body does respond to safety and support.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so the support might be where some of the physical helps could come in. So the safety, and then now the expansion.
Yes. The expansion is where we're able to apply. It's where we get to see the growth, right? It's where we get to see the real change. And this is where it opens up possibilities and opens up doors for us that are quite exciting. And the way that I see it, it's really not becoming who we used to be. It's not a returning to who we used to be. It's a becoming a new level of aliveness that we've never had before.
That's great.
It's an opening up that we didn't even know we could be that open, because we've never been that open, and we never even thought of being that open, because we've always been packing our trauma. So it is quite the shift, and it's so really exciting for this phase. But we need to put the foundation in first.
Okay, so if somebody's listening or somebody's reading the article and they want to know, they say, okay, I resonate with all of this. I want to do this. So what would you recommend they do?
One would be buy the book.
Well,
Buy
yeah,
the book, because
buy the
it
book
will
first of all. Yeah.
help you recognize if and how much stored trauma your body's holding.
Okay.
And then it's going to give you the roadmap for knowing what do you do about it. Because it's not just what you do, it's how you do it as well. How we work with our body, how we engage in these things that could be too much if we do them in a certain way. And so the how is just as much important as the what. And I lay that all out so that a person can truly have a roadmap and have this guide for knowing, is this the most helpful thing for me to do right now, or would this not be the right time? Is this helpful, or is this not the right thing, or not the right time? I want people to be able to have that knowledge for making better decisions about their growth, about their trauma work, of therapy, personal development, especially when they have a chronic health issue that is going to impact their body's ability to do trauma work.
That was something I definitely wanted to talk about in here. So we're gonna come back to where we are, because we've got buy the book is the first thing to do. So, but buying the book and learning what you've talked about, I want people to understand that. And this happened when I was doing the 21-day journey in 2021. I had to be very careful because my body was still so reactive, because I had a lot of pathogens in my gut, which you discerned. And so when I would do too much or barely any, I would have flare-ups. So let's talk about that, if you would, please.
Yeah, the flare-ups are when our body says, hey, that was too much for me. I know you had good intentions, but that actually was too much for me. So a flare-up is information from our body, just like a trigger. Getting triggered is actually just information from our body that says, that's poking at something. And so a flare-up is information that says, that was too much for my sense of my capacity.
So yes, I just want people to understand that you can actually start delving into some of your, emotional stuff or trauma stuff, and you can literally have a physical inflammatory flare-up. And so Dr. Aimie is very careful about that, and doesn't want people to have that. So she talks about going slow and with all of this, and really working on the safety part in the beginning. And then what you told me, let's also talk a little bit about that. When I was doing the 21-day journey and doing some of the coaching that you were providing at the time, you had coaches, you determined, I think you looked at some of my blood work and some of my stool sample labs and stuff like that, and you saw that I had infections in my gut. And you said you need to go and take care of that. And so that's what I did. So let's talk about that, because some of these people do have, some physical health issues that do need to be addressed. And so how do you deal with that?
Absolutely. And I am running out of time. I do need to pop over to another interview. So I'll answer this by saying I think that I certainly downplayed the role that my physical health had on being a source of danger to my nervous system. I had always seen that my nervous system was picking up information from people and places, things outside of me. I didn't know that my own biology was a cue of danger to my nervous system. And so that's what I mean by when someone has a physical health issue, like you've had, their trauma work does need to take that into consideration. It is different than doing trauma work when you don't have any physical health issues, because your physical health issue represents a biology of trauma, which is giving your nervous system a cue of danger.
Right. Yes.
And so we need to take that into consideration. It does make the process different in order to support our biology.
Okay, so let's go back to, let's just finish this up, and then we're going to have to make sure everybody knows exactly, the book, how to do your programs. So one is buy the book. Two is what? Do one of your programs, or you've got several. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I start everyone with the foundational journey, because we start with the foundation, and then we can go deeper into some of the elements of the freeze response and the trauma response and grief and attachment. But we got to lay the foundation first. So that's where I start everyone, the foundational journey. And they can find my podcast, they can find my guides, my resources on my website, biologyoftrauma.com. They can also find me on YouTube. And those are places where they can have free resources and see if more of this makes sense, or maybe they've heard enough from us today that they know this makes sense and definitely get the book. And then they're ready to sign up for the foundational journey, which I would love to be able to teach them those skills of working with their nervous system so that they can create their inner safety and their inner peace as just a place to start.
This is wonderful. So the book can be, of course, you can get it on Amazon. I guess you can get it at your website. So
yeah, Amazon is the best place. Go to Amazon. You can also find it at Barnes & Noble. They also are carrying it in Target, a few other places. So Biology of Trauma book available at all the bookstores and on Amazon.
I believe it's a bestseller right now already.
It is a bestseller right now. Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is so exciting. And thank you, Dr. Aimie, thank you so much for doing this for people and helping people. I mean,
thank you so much.
And thank you for doing this podcast. I've just enjoyed this so much. And I could keep you on here for hours with questions, but I think we've given everybody enough to think about. And God bless you for everything you do.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.